Well, it's another 100-degree day out here in the great country of Texas. And we spent yesterday on Lake Tyler fishing the championship for the King of the Hill Trail. And long story short, we came back just a bunch of whiny little ladies because we just couldn't get our fish in the boat. We had some good fish on. I'm going to go over some of them techniques and stuff that we were using. But long story short, we got heartbroken first thing in the morning, and it hit us for the remainder of the day. We couldn't shake it off. So we were kind of snake bit from the get-go on Lake Tyler, but it showed out. We just couldn't fish clean. So I'm gonna go over some of those techniques and stuff that we were using. Stay tuned. So first thing in the morning, we went to the East Lake, which means you launch there at the marina and drive through the canal and run to the East Lake. Lake Tyler's two lakes, for those that ain't never been there, but it's divided east and west, or New Lake versus Old Lake, and they're connected through a concrete canal. But we get out to our first spot and we break out the frog, and I was using a popping frog, and on a Kistler frog and toad rod helium series right here, 7'3", medium heavy, on a loose skipping and pitching reel with 50-pound braid. And these bass, they were bulrushing bait, literally on the bank. You could just see them sharking through and causing quite a stir on the surface of the water because it's minimal inches of water. We were throwing the frogs on the bank and bringing them back out into the water, and they were murdering it. But every time they were murdering it, it's like they weren't trying to kill it, they just wanted to play with it. It was like a bath toy for them. I ended up sticking some literally in the side. The hooks on this here Spro frog was sticking some on the side. That kind of tells me what I was just sharing with you, that they weren't there to eat it per se, they were just trying to play with a bath toy, and stuck some of them, but it was fun. And then my fishing partner Hector, he got a hold of one and he fought that fish tooth and nail to get it to the boat. It jumped like 4 or 5 times, and then maybe 15 feet away it just came off, and then he came back with a frog full of snot grass. So it was heartbreaking, to say the least, that we couldn't get the bigger ones in the boat. But the little rats, we had no problem with as usual. Imagine that. But it was fun, to say the least. Lake Tyler did have fun, and this was the first way that we was catching them, was on a topwater frog, and I was using this Kistler frog and toad rod with braided line and a loose skipping and pitching reel. All right, so after we kind of had enough of the topwater bite and the grass, we had gone to do dock fishing the remainder of the day, and there was a couple of ways we were catching them, but the best baits were finesse jigs and shaky heads. So the finesse jigs that I was using was the new Berkeley finesse jig in 3/8 ounce, paired up with a Strike King Menace, a full Menace, and I just cut them down. That way I can get the size that I'm looking for from a trailer point of view. But this is the Berkeley Finesse 3/8 ounce in blue crawl with a Strike King Rage Menace, also in blue crawl, on a Kistler helium rod that is medium heavy, 7'3", and again I'm using the loose skipping and pitching reel. I just like that reel. It makes good sense to use it. Holds 40 to 50 yards of string depending on the size of the string that you're using. You're not going to cast any bait more than 50 yards, just no freaking way. So that's why I like the skipping and pitching. It's because it's got that larger spool inside there. The other micro jig that I was using on the same rod set up from Kistler and Lou's reel is this here. This is called a Tight Ropes finesse jig. It's a 1/4 ounce ball head, and it's got this fluorocarbon weed guard on it and a little micro hook, and then I stick on the back of that one of the Ned Rig from Strike King Rage bugs, and that's my little finesse setup. And I'm swinging that again on the same Kistler 7'3" helium. I just love these rods. They're real light, extra sensitive, awesome rods, and I can swing this, skip this under most docks without any problems, along with that Berkeley finesse jig as well. The Berkeley finesse jig's got a little bit flatter head, so it skips a little easier. It's got a little bit more meat and potatoes, but this is a super small micro jig from Tight Ropes. I'm not sponsored by none of them, and long story short, this thing will get them. This time of the year in the fall, or the fall transition, you want that micro jig to imitate the smaller crawdads. Most bass, regardless of the size, are going to eat a small little 3-inch crawdad, and this is perfect. This little skirt from the Tight Ropes, when it lands on the bottom, it's got that spider rubber skirt on there to help stand it up, and they just can't resist it. So I love fishing finesse jigs this time of year, and it paid off. But once again, man, they'd wrap me around the steps of some boat docks, and just couldn't get them out of there, and had to break a few of them off. I had one that wrapped me around a set of steps, and as it was wrapping me, it was pulling drag. So I know that was a good fish, and just couldn't get it out. Even with 20-pound test line, it just pulled my skirt down today, and it was heartbreaking. That's how it goes. That's why it's called fishing and not catching. So while we were fishing docks and other parts of the lake, on the East Lake there, on Lake Tyler, East Lake, we made a run to the West Lake, and as we were skipping jigs under docks and whatnot, we noticed in between some of the docks that fish were coming up, busting shad in the backs of some of these creeks and tributaries. That was about 83-degree water, but it was 100 degrees outside, and it was hot. So what we did is we picked up some topwater baits. Hector was throwing a Zara spook, and I tied on the Yellow Magic, and I put that Yellow Magic on my Kistler jerkbait rod, and we went to work. But once again, we couldn't get fish in the boat. They'd come up and just bath to it. We had several come all the way out of the water, and I wish that it wasn't so hot where my GoPro wouldn't have melted and kept recording, but we missed out on some footage there. But 100-degree heat, no GoPro's going to keep working. But anyways, a Yellow Magic, once again on a loose, heavy-duty reel with the Kistler jerkbait rod that is perfect for your jerkbaits and your topwater rods, and it's got a real limber tip on it. You're not going to break it. It's perfect. It lets them have it. They're going to eat it real good. You're not going to pull it out of the mouth, and it's got a short cork handle on it, so you're not setting the hook and jabbing yourself in the ribs all the time with a topwater rod or a jerkbait rod. This is a really nice rod for that. But the Yellow Magic was the deal in bone color. Again, we caught the rats, but the big ones, for whatever reason, these Yellow Magic hooks, they're super sticky, but they didn't want to stick the big ones for some dadgum reason. I can't explain that. But they're little rats, they're little 12, 14 inchers. We caught enough of them to get fish thumb and have a lot of fun still. But at the end of the day, it was a minimal 15-inch tournament for King of the Hill, and we struggled getting them over 15 inches in the boat for whatever reason. So, but we found them. We had a lot of them, and the Kistler rods were doing their job. But for whatever reason, we just didn't fish clean. It just wasn't our day. So another technique that we were using while we were fishing docks is the good old shaky head. This right here is a Jewel Baits shaky head, and 1/4 ounce. It's a ball head with a really sharp hook on it, using a Zoom Trick worm on a Kistler helium weightless worm and Cinco rod. It's a 7-foot light medium heavy rod. Again, very light rod. It is that, but it's got a really good tip on it, and very sensitive. And I think they only weigh like 3 ounces for the entire rod setup. So that's nice. And then a loose skipping and pitching rod for the reel, and then some Seaguar fluorocarbon tattoo for those who are curious about that. But we caught more rats on the shaky head Zoom trick worm here in Green Pumpkin Magic. But again, size was an issue using the shaky head, but we caught quite a few. Needless to say, the helium from Kistler would get those in the boat, but we didn't catch anything with size at all in the shaky head. They were all rats, but the bigger fish came on some top waters and the jigs, but they wrapped us up and we couldn't get them out or got hung up in the brush on the docks. But anyways, that was the other technique that we were able to catch fish on for the King of the Hill Championship on Lake Tyler. So one of the techniques that we could not get any strikes on, which was baffling, is a fluke. We threw the fluke, I threw an underspin paddle tail. We couldn't get them to eat anything that was shad related in any shape, form, or fashion, but they would eat the top water on a Zara spook, and they would also eat the yellow magic. But a fluke imitation along with a paddle tail, we couldn't get them to eat. Maybe they just didn't like the Berkley power bait, I don't know. Maybe we were fishing it too fast, maybe we were fishing it too slow. But in the same grassy areas while they're chasing minnows, chasing bait like it was nobody's business, we couldn't get them to eat this. So that was kind of disappointing, but nonetheless, I use the soft jerk bait and a paddle tail on a Kistler rod KLX series, and it's also a light, medium, heavy with a loose reel. And this is a 7'3" rod, very parabolic, very light, plenty of backbone to get them in. That wasn't the problem at all. We just couldn't get them to eat this bait. And for whatever reason, they just didn't want a shad imitation unless it was a yellow magic or a Zara spook. So we had fun with those, but the soft-sided jerk bait and a paddle tail swim bait with an underspin, still couldn't get them to eat it. But these are the baits that we were not catching them with, to say the least. But still had a lot of fun skipping docks, catching them on top water, you know, in middle to late September and 100 degrees outside. Who would have figured that they would have been in a foot of water on Lake Tyler? Just how it is. That's why it's called fishing. With all of the bait that we saw up skinny and them fish just bull rushing them, another technique that I employed was throwing a fluke on a weighted hook. This is a Berkley version of the fluke, and it's got that Berkley scent off in it on a 4/0 weighted hook with a 1/8 of an ounce weight. I throw that on a Kistler KLX rod. It's a 3-power rod. It's also a light, medium, heavy. Again, it gives you a very parabolic tip, and then has plenty of backbone to have fun with it, to say the least, and gets them in the boat. And I also use a luge reel that is a custom XP for that. And as you can see, you know, this cork's kind of a little dirty because I use these rods a lot. I'm always using a soft jerk bait such as a fluke on here, or an underspin, which is another shad imitation that we tried, but for whatever reason we couldn't get them on anything representing shad except for top water. So that yellow magic, Zara spook, that was the only things that we could get them while they were chasing shad. And then everything else, when we went dock fishing, you know, normal dock techniques, you have jigs and shaky heads. We didn't throw a Texas rig worm, we didn't throw a brush hog, we didn't throw a creature bait. Just micro jigs and finesse jigs under the docks, along with a shaky head here and there. And again, we got a hold of some of them, but they just hung us up in the brush and we couldn't get them out. So it was kind of heartbreaking, to say the least. But you know, these are the rods and reels and the baits and techniques that we were catching our fish on. It's a 3-fish tournament, King of the Hill. I highly recommend it. It's not a club, it's just a group of guys that draw the lake Friday night at 6, and everybody goes into the lake blind. So you use what you know about the lake with what the weather's giving you, and you know, you hope to go in there and you catch your 3 heaviest fish that are over 15, and it's a fun day. It keeps the stress of the fish down. Again, you only put 3 in your box, and this Texas heat don't bother them too much when you only have 3. But sadly, we didn't even have 3. But we saw a lot of our big fish, and we had some 6-pounders on, and we should have smoked that tournament. But just again, it wasn't our day. It took just under 11 pounds to win it, and so that's how our King of the Hill championship ended on Lake Tyler. So if you got any questions about the Berkley jigs that we were using, or the Kistler rods that we were using, I am on the field staffs of both of those organizations. Happy to discuss any of that. But this video is not sponsored by any of them, but I am on the field staff. So if you got questions, let me know. We weighed 1 fish. Long story short, that kind of stunk, but we didn't zero. We just couldn't get the size, and then when we did, we couldn't get them in the boat. So Hector and I, we had a really good year. Again, King of the Hill, you can find it on Facebook if you're out here in the East Texas area. It's a real simple format. Garvin East does a fantastic job in regards to running it and being the tournament director. The rules are, again, 3 fish, minimal 15 inches, no matter what the species of the fish is, has to be a 15-inch fish. And we draw the lakes the night before the event. Even for the championship, he puts all the lakes back in, and he draws from there. And during the year, once a lake is used or pulled or drawn, he doesn't put that back in until the championship. So the lakes that we fished this year, or had in the hat, was Richland Chambers, Cedar Creek, Lake Palestine, Lake Tyler, Bob Sandlin, and Lake Tawalkney. All live fish lakes, all good fisheries, all big fisheries, and they can accommodate 25 to 30 boats that we commonly pull. And again, it's there more for the fellowship and the camaraderie, and you get a little money out of it too if it's your day. But the championship, first place was $1,800, second place was $1,000, and then third and fourth place, because we took 24 boats to the championship if you qualified for it, and you know, they got $300 to $400, and I think $500 for a third. So you got your entry fee back and then some. But everybody likes to hang around, talk smack to one another, shake your hand, talk fishing, and it's just a good group of guys, and it's a fun event. I like going there equally blind, and everybody has to use what they can, what they got in the boat, to get them figured out. And sometimes people will whop them, you know, 15, 17 pounds on 3 fish, and then sometimes you're a zero and you get nothing. So great event, great organization, for lack of better words. Again, it's just a group of guys. It's really not a club or anything else, but you got to obey some tournament rules, such as launch at this time, last cast at this time, being the weigh-in at this time. So if you got any questions about that, Kistler rods or the Berkley products, let me know. Happy to talk to you. We'd like to see more people out there on the King of the Hill, and you know, go rip some lip. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. Y'all take care of yourselves.